The first thing I want to really have a conversation around is just the importance of having a philosophy. To me, the belief system that a person needs to have in order to handle really any objection is to have a "you're welcome" mindset. Another approach that I've taken recently is Jesse Itzler.
There's not one that works every single time. Sometimes it's going to take a few.
What does a salesperson need to say, do, or think about differently in order to improve their philosophy?
Well, and I think the importance of figuring it out and stating it is...
Hi, and welcome to the Jason Forrest Show. I'm here with my wife, Mary Forrest, and today we're talking about something pretty cool. Over the last 20 years, we have been studying the world's best sales professionals, the top 1%, the elite best of the best. And what we've realized is that they all live by this core philosophy as well as some underlying beliefs. And so today we're going to discuss the philosophy that makes up the top 1% sales professionals. We're going to share that with you, as well as the beliefs that really guide them in everything they do. So we have a lot to discuss today. Mary, are you ready to go?
I am. Let's do it.
Okay, perfect. So before we get into this, though, last time we discussed the selling styles, and we had a great conversation around the leader, protector, and servant. So definitely, we had a lot of people that watched that episode. A lot of people commented and shared if they're a leader, if they're a servant, if they're a protector. We, of course, went and talked about Elon Musk and Patrick Bet-David and Trump and all these different people and what kind of selling style they are. And people, of course, took the quiz. If you haven't taken the quiz, it's definitely in the comment section below or in the show notes. People can take the quiz and figure out what selling style they are, and of course, put it in the comments below. But a question came up recently that on a coaching session and a big webinar that we were doing, and I want to share my answer to that. And so the question was, well, Jason, if I'm dominant in one and I'm dormant in the other, then again, how do I really kind of improve myself in the other areas? And what I shared with them is that, again, the good news is that you have each of these selling styles inside of you. So, for example, if you feel like you don't really have the leader selling style in you. So again, the leader selling style is that of structure and order, again, speaks with the language of authority. The first thing I would ask you is, has there ever been a time in your life outside of sales where you took charge, where you immediately told your kids or a friend or a family member or maybe another employee or a coworker, and you said, hey, the next thing we need to do is, or in order to get us from A to Z, we need to do step by, this step and this step and this step. And of course, the person said, yeah, that's exactly, I've done that before. Okay, so you have the leader in you. It just hasn't been cultivated in a selling situation. So the good news, it's in there, it's dormant. We just need to bring it out. Or some people say, you know what, I'm just not really a protector type of person. So a protector type of person is someone who speaks truth and is very assertive to the customers that they're working with. And again, they use the language of, I want to be honest with you. I want to shoot you straight. I just want to say it like it is. I don't want to hold anything back. I don't want to hurt your feelings, but I just got to speak my truth. And if a salesperson says, I don't really feel like I have that in me, then again, same thing. The question I would ask you is have you ever stood up for anyone? Like even like in your childhood, did you ever stand up for someone who's being bullied, or you claimed something and said, you know what, enough is enough, and I need to like speak my truth. I need to speak up for this person who's being abused or taken for granted. And of course, the person says, yeah, I've done that before. All right, so the protector is in you. We just need to cultivate and put that into the selling situation. And then the last one is that servant. And, people sometimes struggle because servant is all about empathy. And, I know, we joked about me even last time that, empathy is not my strong suit because I have more of that protector and leader inside of me. But it's interesting because even in kind of coaching myself, and this is how I coach other people, is I said to them, well, has there ever been a time where you felt your kids were going through something unfortunate, like you felt they were struggling with something, or maybe your significant other, you felt that they were in pain, but they weren't saying they were in pain. You just kind of felt the emotion of pain, or you felt the emotion of anxiety, and you ever called them out on it. You said, hey, are you going through something? I'm sensing something is going on. And I know I felt that with you, Mary. Like I've brought to my attention that I feel like there's something going on. And well, that's empathy. And that's empathy. So if you can do it in your personal life, then again, you can of course do it in your work life. And I think that's a good point for everyone, is that that each of these selling styles, again, the leader, protector, and the servant, in order to have more authority, speak with more truth, or have more empathy with our customers, each of these can be cultivated, because each of these are things that we use in other areas of our life. We just somehow forget to use them in selling situations.
I think that's brilliant. And I think there's probably some people that see aspects of themselves that they really appreciate in their work life that they want to bring to their personal life. And so you could use this the other way around as well. As you're speaking, I'm thinking about, for me personally, I feel fairly bold, and I do not yield when it comes to business and when it comes to selling. But as soon as it's a personal relationship, I'm like, whatever you want, no problem, not having conflict here. And sometimes conflict is needed for compromise or growth in personal relationships as well. So I think it's, we could probably go both directions with that. It's a really, really interesting concept.
That is a good point. So you're saying that there are also situations where, like you said, someone's a protector or protector at work, or protector in their selling style, but they aren't using that protector energy or archetype in their personal life. Like they have tons of claim and they take a stand, and they don't get pushed around in a selling type situation, but they're not using that in their marriage or as a father or a mother.
Correct. Yeah. With friends, any relationships, for sure.
Yeah, that's great. So that was one thing that came up this week in a coaching situation. I definitely would love to hear things that have come up for you in coaching situations this week that people are really dealing with. So I think that helps people, like the real life stuff that people are going through. The second thing that came up this week in a coaching situation is this, and I know you know exactly where I'm going to go with this, which is really fun. And that's, the number one mistake that salespeople make, in my opinion, is they don't get the prospect to burn the ships. They don't get them to burn the boats. All right. So it's the metaphor of when Cortez, the famous conquistador, came from Spain and came to Mexico, and all the previous conquerors had failed to conquer Mexico. He said, "Look, we're going to burn the ships. We're either going to conquer Mexico, we're going to die trying. There's no safety boat back to Spain." And to me, I think this is the number one mistake. This is the number one. If I could pick one mistake that salespeople make, is they don't focus on getting the customers to burn the ships. Now, we of course call them a category 1 buyer. It's that buyer that hasn't decided to make a change. And of course, we can't really sell them on, why buy us? Why are we the right choice for them? Or why buy this product, until we convince them that they're unhappy enough with their current law firm, their current remodeling job, their current home, their current car, their current SEO provider. We can't get them to open their mind for something new until we get them to again say yes, they're going to make a change. And so here's what came up, is that a lot of times salespeople think that they've got the customer to burn the ships, and that you ask them, you coach them, you say, right, so you're moving forward with this person. They're not a category 1 buyer, now a category 2. They're definitely decided to leave what they have. And they're like, yeah, absolutely. But in this situation, I was coaching some real estate professionals, coaching some new home sales professionals. And they said this person's definitely a category 2 buyer. But check this out, Mary. The customer still hadn't put their existing house on the market, still hadn't contacted a realtor, and still hadn't contacted a lender. So they hadn't talked to a lender to obtain financing, and they hadn't talked to a realtor to put their house on the market. So they said they're definitely fed up with their current house. They definitely want to make a change, but they haven't actually burned the ships from that perspective. And so that's a big thing that we see all the time, right? And so what would your advice be in a situation like that, because that's a common thing that we see?
So, well, I would ask more questions. To me, there's a difference in if if, and again, there's two different things. There's the perception from the salesperson in front of you, and there's the perception from the buyer. And so from the salesperson is the one in front of you. So what I would ask is, when did you ask the categorizing question? Have you definitely decided to move? And when did they have that revelation? Because if in the conversation, so let's say the prospect came in and they were a category 1, and through the conversation with the salesperson, they decide, yes, I am definitely going to make a move. Well, of course they haven't. We've got to give them time now to act. And so my coaching to them would be, okay, so let's not ever put our money in somebody else's hands or our fate in somebody else's hands. Let's go ahead and get a lender on the phone right now, and let's set that meeting up with them. Let's make sure that we are taking control of that moving forward. On the other hand, if they said, oh yeah, they've been category 3, we've been having these conversations for 6 months. Well, it's probably not really a category 3 because no actions happened. And so I'd want to go back and there's probably a discovery that's missing, a piece of discovery that's stopping them from moving forward. So they're not truly category 3.
Yeah, 100%. So what's interesting is your parents are in the situation.
Yeah.
So your parents right now, they're definitely looking, they want to move. They say they want to move.
Yes.
They have spoken to a lender, so they do know, again, what they can afford and what the right, the money they want to spend. They do know that. They've spoken to a realtor, but they have not listed their house.
Correct.
And they haven't gone through the process of staging their house or getting their house really ready to sell. Like so, what are they? They're technically, they're still a category 1 buyer, but they're speaking category 2 language. So they're speaking category 2. They're talking a big game, like they're talking. And so I would assume, for the salespeople out there that they're speaking to about buying their house, they're getting those salespeople very, very excited. And I would assume those salespeople are probably putting your parents on their top 10 list of this person is 100% going to buy. I feel very confident about them. I know they're going to buy. I know they're going to make it happen. But again, your parents still haven't even listed their house.
Or decided, which state they want to live in, which is another. Yeah, and that category is also helping to narrow down those spaces. So yes, they get excited about a place, but they're excited about several states.
Yeah, exactly. So again, this is just a great reminder for a lot of us that the number one mistake salespeople make is they don't get the prospect to burn the boats. They don't get them to say, yes, I'm definitely going to leave what I have. I'm definitely going to make a change. I can't spend one more night in this house. I can't spend one more day in this school system. I can't spend, I can't spend one more month with this SEO provider or this CRM or this law firm or this consultant or this recruiting company. I have to move on. I have to do something different. And here's my kind of evidence. Here's the behaviors that I'm taking in order to make that happen. And so that's crucial because, again, as salespeople, we have to be targeted in our responses, and we have to make sure that we're applying the appropriate messaging for the buyer in front of us. And we keep talking about, why they should buy from us or why they should buy at this moment or buy now, but we haven't even convinced them to do the first selling message, which is why they should make a change, why they should leave what they have.
Okay, so I like this game. So I did have a coaching conversation I'd like to bring up and give you the scenario, hear your feedback, and then I'll tell you what I shared.
Okay.
And let's compare notes. And okay, so this was earlier this week. Luke in one of my classes, Luke, very, very seasoned, very successful sales professional, also sells real estate. And so this particular project that he's working on, he is selling some very high-end condos, $1 million plus for the condos. And he's had a gentleman that he's been talking to for, I think he said like 2 years. And so the paused moment that he's had in the past is that the gentleman is very concerned about noise. And so he keeps saying, you know what? This is where I want to live. These are the condos I want to have. But I'm going to wait till the next building because the next building is going to be a little bit farther away from the elementary school, and I don't want to hear any children. And so now I believe they're on building 3 now. And so he has an appointment again for building 3 because the gentleman wants to come out specifically to go during the school day to hear if he can hear what the noise level is within the units that are available to decide whether or not to move forward. So that was the scenario. And he said, so any tips on what to do here? So I'd love what you would do. And then I'll share the coaching that I gave, and we'll see how we do.
Yeah, perfect. So this is the tips of how do we get a person to not wait for the next project, but instead go ahead and buy now.
Correct, right? Because he's moved, and the objection he's giving is noise, but he's paused his own moving forward for 2 buildings now. So now we're on building 3, and he hasn't. So he's still that like category 1 because he hasn't listed his house. He's just been waiting.
Got it. Perfect. Good. Okay. So to me, this reminds me of the movie that I've actually never watched, but it's Moana. Is that how you say it? Moana?
Yes, I'm so eager about this. I've seen Moana many, many times.
Yeah. So from the philosophy of the great Moana, in this documentary called Moana, I've never watched this movie before, but there was a song, and the song was called "You're Welcome."
Oh, I do love you. Well, yes, we sing that song.
How does it go? You want to sing it for us?
No, I don't. I'm not that comfortable right now.
You don't want to sing it? All right. So there's this idea called you're welcome, right? Well, to me, the belief system that a person needs to have in order to handle really any objection is to have a you're welcome mindset. And the you're welcome mindset is that the number one problem that you have with us, the number one objection you have with us is the exact gift that we're giving you for everything else that you really want. So for example, let's just talk about this situation. So in this situation, what are all the things that this customer is getting? If the one compromise is being close to school, that's the compromise, right? So that's the obstacle. And so we want to flip the script and say, yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome that you get to live next to this school. You're welcome because without being next to the school, here is what you're going to have to compromise on. And I would assume they're going to have to compromise on the price going higher. They're going to have to compromise potentially on maybe that floor plan that they want is not going to be available. They're going to have to compromise maybe on a specific lot size, home site size. They're going to have to compromise on maybe a direction of the house is going to face. They're going to have to, if the price goes higher, then of course they're going to have to either raise their budget, which was going to cause all kinds of consequences, things that they can't afford, maybe potentially. It's going to make them house poor. That's not good. Or they're going to have to buy a smaller house and have to sacrifice things that they really enjoy right now. So maybe smaller square footage or less features that they want. And so if you combine the philosophy of Moana and this you're welcome mindset, combined with Marcus Aurelius. And in the book with Marcus Aurelius and from Ryan Holiday, he talks about this idea of the obstacle is the way, meaning that the way to get a person to say yes to something is not to actually apologize for it of, yeah, I'm sorry you have to live next to the school. I'm sorry that this is the case. I'm sorry that we can't do anything about that. I'm sorry that we can't change the price. We can't apologize, but instead we have to do the complete opposite and say, yeah, you're welcome. The obstacle is way. The thing that will actually give you what you're looking for is to buy next to the school. It's because of living next to the school, you actually get all these other things that you want. And if you don't buy next to the school, you're going to have to compromise on all these other things, and it's going to be a deal breaker for you.
I love that so much. And I think what's really fun about it is in listening to your response, it is so protector and it's spirit, which you say is your dominant, and it is very protector, which also makes me look at what I did, which is very leader, like very procedural. You do this, then you do this, then you do this. But I love it. And the you're welcome is one of my favorite things that you teach because it just makes it's so obvious and so simple, and it makes me laugh every single time.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And so what did you advise?
Okay. So here's what I said. I wanted to get out of the subjective of it's noisy and I can hear children and make it an objective thing, because now I can start working with objective numbers. So I went to, conversations that you can have are, hey, now that we are outside listening in and listening, on the balcony, at recess, on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you put the noise level of these kids? So that now we're putting a number to it. Now we're going to have an objective number. And then I want to ask, so I'm curious, what is the unacceptable number? So if I'm trying to battle sound and there is sound, that's one thing. But if he says, well, the sound is at a 4, and I go, well, what's acceptable? Or what's unacceptable? And he says, well, a 5 would be unacceptable. Great, we're under it. So now it's dissolved the objection in itself. Or if he says, well, a 2 is what I'm looking for. Okay, well, now I'm only 1 point away or 2 points away, as opposed to having this huge objection of sound. I'm just like, oh, we only have we're 2 points away. Okay, well, let's talk about that. Let's go inside. Now, inside the home, where would you put the level of sound from 1 to 10 and have that number? We could say, hey, once you have hey, let's put some music on our phone. What is it now? There's all these ways that I can start changing the number. I also then, in looking at that, that's looking at right here where we are and putting numbers and really seeing where am I. But then I asked Luke, and he's such an expert that he knew the answers to this. I said, what are the what's your competition in condos in your price range and a true competitor? And I said, tell me about that. And he said, it's right on a highway. And I said, perfect. So then now we've got another comparison. So you ask him, I'm curious, what's a more frustrating sound to you? Children at recess, an hour, 5 days a week, or consistent road noise? And we're going to get an answer. Now, he might say the kids, and that's okay. At least we now know the battle that we're going. We can ask about his current home now to then summarize, to go back. And I ended a lot of not exactly with the precision and the smoothness that you did, that you're welcome. But I did say now at the end, we can talk about the whole picture. Okay, so right now you want, the goal is to have sound at a 2. And you said this one inside is at a 3. So we've got 1 point that's above where you would want it to be. But in this home and in this condo, here's all the things that you said about this community. And here's all the things that you said about this particular home that improve your life. Is all of that worth 1 point over where we want on sound, 1 hour, 5 days a week? And now I'm taking everything that's these nebulous, it's too noisy, it's too this, and I'm putting numbers and I've got metrics, and now I'm making it easier for them to compare. So I don't know how it went yet. I think the meeting is actually tomorrow. So by the next time that we film, I'll have the answer of what happened. So I'm very eager to hear how this conversation goes.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and what you did is one of the core beliefs of being a top 1% sales professional. We call them a sales warrior. And that's, I can sell anything so I could sell anything by breaking it down into small decisions, which we'll talk about, of course, today, right? So you took this major decision and you helped them chunk it down into little kind of step-by-step decisions that we're going to take one at a time. And if we say yes to this decision, then we'll worry about the next decision.
Exactly. And I loved it because I was really excited about it, because we're talking about the decision there, but we're also always going back to the 3 elements of discovery, which is, we want to compare and we want to understand about what they want. And that's why he was standing in this new condo, because this is what he thinks he wants. But we also always have to look at it and have conversations about what else is out there, what's our competition, and what are they currently doing, or what do they currently have in this situation, his current home, in this situation, these other condos that were for sale close by. And so when we have always put everything around those 3 aspects of what they want, what they have, and what else is out there, now we're making sure that no stone is left unturned, so that there will be action that's being taken place, instead of somebody saying, yeah, this is what I want, and then nothing happens from it, or getting ghosted. Usually I find if we're getting ghosted, we've missed something, one of those elements of discovery.
So this leads me to an interesting question. So I wonder how a servant would would apply? Like what would the strategies be or the techniques? So so I immediately gave the protector approach. You gave the leader approach to solving the problem. So now, again, if the servant is all about empathy, if the servant is all about going 3YZ, if the servant's all about feeling what the person feels and making sure that we really get the person. So from a servant's perspective or identity, what advice would you give to solve this problem?
Such a good question. So the first thing that comes up for me, and I'll be interested what you feel about it, but would be understanding why this sound is bothersome. So if we could really, if we dove into that, so is it bothersome because he's frustrated that he's getting older and he can't hear as well with background noise, and it puts him face to face with his aging body? Is it that perhaps maybe he has lost a child or grandchild, and hearing children brings up negative emotions, and so that's a hard thing, and so dealing with that? Is it because the most important thing to him is just his peace? Maybe he is practices a lot of prayer or meditation and needs silence in order to get to that space. We have no idea. And with both of the concepts and the ways of figuring out that you and I came up with, we don't know why he really doesn't want that sound. And so I think that was the missing element that the servant would figure out and understand, and then be able to have a solution based on that. It's the first thing that comes up for me.
Mm-hmm. I think that's very profound. I love that you connected it to there's some kind of meaning behind it, because in life, there's the circumstances that we all go through, and then there's the meaning that we give it. And so you brilliantly said the noise of a school, there's a meaning behind it. And for one person, it could be, I'm older in my life, and I just don't want to deal with kids. I don't want to deal with that. Or it could be, there's some sort of connection to seeing children, and it brings, some sort of PTSD connection to them, and there's an impact that's going on. Or maybe it's a safety concern, and there's some back programming around safety around children in schools, and what does that mean? Or maybe the person likes to drive fast, and they want to be free and don't have to worry about school zones. I mean, there's so much that could happen, right, with that. So I love that, and I love and I think what's interesting about this is that you have the same exact scenario, same circumstance, same problem, and there's three different really ways to approach it. The question is, what's really the right approach?
Who knows? I mean, I think that's why it's good. And I love that you asked a question about servant is, especially when I'm working with teams on objections, I'll go, okay, I'm going to give you a new handling objection process, because there's not one that works every single time. Sometimes it's going to take a few. So maybe they start with the protector, and then they go to the leader, and then Luke needs to circle back with the servant, and that's what connects with this person. And so knowing and being able to lean in and embody all three gives us those three resources. So if we're missing the mark, we've got another path to get there. And so any one of them could work. And I think it would be dependent on the situation of the person in front of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So this leads perfectly into what I wanted to talk about today, which is the importance of having a philosophy. So today we're going to talk about the philosophy, as well as several of the beliefs that we've researched and found to be true of the world's best sales professionals. But the first thing I want to really have a conversation around is just the importance of having a philosophy, the importance of standing for something. And one of the things that I just taught recently on a class, on a training session, is that we all have philosophies. It's just most of those philosophies are subconscious and they're not conscious. So for example, if I was to follow a person around as a parent, and I would notice the behaviors of how they were parenting, I would notice the language patterns of how they were parenting, I would notice their how they presented themselves as a parent. or did the same thing as an employee, or the same thing as a boss, or the same thing as a friend. That's their philosophy. Now, if I go to that person and I say, what is your philosophy of being a friend, or being an owner, or being a parent, or an employee, or a salesperson, or a husband, or a wife? They probably wouldn't be able to answer the question. They probably haven't actually consciously thought about it, but subconsciously their philosophy is in there. And subconsciously, that philosophy is governing all of their motivations. It's governing their emotions. It's governing their behaviors, and therefore it's governing the outcome that they're receiving as, again, a husband, a wife, a parent, an owner, an employee. And of course, today we're talking about a salesperson. And so the first thing that I think is important is for people to take some time and figure out, what is your philosophy about blank? And really take some time to think about that. And then when they do that, so again, what's your philosophy about parenting? What's your philosophy about leadership? And then take some time to write that out. And then ask yourself, over the last 30 days, have I been living up to my philosophy? Or am I two different people here? Am I the person that is kind of driven by my subconscious self, and that subconscious self is really my kind of philosophy that I'm on autopilot with, but that's in conflict with my actual conscious philosophy? It's different than the philosophy that I'd like to have, and so I'd like your comments on this. But I know from a leadership perspective, because you teach the majority of our sales leadership classes, and I know that's a big area that you work with sales leadership on, is helping them to uncover their philosophy. So let's talk about that.
Well, and I think the importance of figuring it out and stating it is, it now becomes hard for you to not do it. So a lot of times we feel uncomfortable in situations. We're like, I don't feel comfortable about this, but I don't really know why. And it gives us that clarity. And so, for me on we can talk about the leadership one too, but starting outside of it on, with family, with extended family. I mean, one of my philosophies is, and who I am is, you show up for family. You show up to their stuff for family. And so you will know that if any of our kids have any activity, it is very important. It is important for me that I show up and that we show up as a family for each of our children. When I have family members that have, if there's a wedding, if there's a funeral, I show up, we show up. I mean, I can only think of one wedding that we weren't able to show up. And it still haunts me that maybe there was a way that we could have taken a different airline after the flight got canceled, or we could have done this or this to get there. Because once you state it, and once that becomes your identity, your stated identity to yourself, it solidifies who you are, and it's hard to go against it, which is great. It should be hard to go against who you are. And that's the place of so much discomfort when we're not sure what we are. And so on the leadership side, when I have leaders create their manifestos of what and who they want to be, once they state it to themselves, and the way I have it is, they state it in our class of other leaders first, and they state it there, and they start to see that change. And then I'll ask them, when are you going to share this with your team? And they tell me when they're going to do it. And some of them are ready immediately. Some of them go, oh, I told them last week. But most of them go, okay, I'm going to sit in this for a little bit. And I think, 3 weeks, I'm going to tell my team. I'll share this with them then. Because I know that once they state it, once you say, this is who I am, and this is how I'm going to show up as a leader, and I give you full permission to let me know if I am outside of this, you show up that way. You are that way. And I watch leaders have so much more confidence in themselves and in the actions that they're taking once it's stated. Because now I don't have to go back and forth. What's the right decision? I know who I am, and this is who I am. And so part of my leadership manifesto is that I tell people this, that I will push you to do more and to be more than you thought was possible. Which means when I'm in a situation where I'm really tired and someone's not living up to what I think they should be, and I don't really want to have the tough conversation, I have it anyway, because not doing it would go against my identity of, I want people to say that from working with Mary, I have accomplished more, I can do more, I can get any job I ever want, I can do anything because oh my gosh, I spent, this many years working with Mary, and if I can do that, I can do anything. And so it keeps me honest to myself on having tough conversations when I need to, and calling out the truth of what I see in people, even when I'm tired and I don't want to do it. So I think philosophies are the most important and powerful things that we can do.
So it's super important that people live by these philosophies. But again, the most important thing I want people to know is that you are living your life right now by a philosophy. The question is it the philosophy that you have chosen, or is it the philosophy that you're just on autopilot because your subconscious is really kind of driving that philosophy for you? But we all want to be conscious beings of choice, and we all want to take a moment and say, this is what I believe about blank. This is my philosophy about blank. It's my philosophy about government. It's my philosophy about the country, about my philosophy about sex trafficking. I mean, these are just different things, and we need to understand what those things are, and we need to take a stand. But it's interesting because it reminds me of kind of two things where I think this becomes scary for people, and I'd love your comment on this. Is that two things come up. Number one is the scene from the movie Jerry Maguire. And it's where he just had a moment, Tom Cruise has this moment, and he immediately, goes back to his hotel room, and he writes this manifesto, this of what he believes makes a great sports agent. And he immediately hits the send button. He sends it, gives the copy to everyone. He goes to Kinko's or whatever it's called back then, Kinko's I think it was, and he gives it to everyone. And immediately he just waits. And of course he's brought into his boss's office, and he gets fired. And he gets fired because he took a stand. He took a stand and he said, "This is what I believe. This is my philosophy about being a great sports agent." But it was not accepted by the people that are out there. And so that's the first thing that comes up. And the second thing that comes up when people, I think is the reason why people have a fear around this, is there's a book title. I think I'm going to get it right. Here's the book title. I don't know the author, so we'll have to look it up. But the book title is something like, I'm afraid to tell you who I am because you might not like who I am, and who I am is all I've got. I think that's the book title. It's like a long book title. But it's like, I'm afraid to tell you who I am or show up as who I am because you might not like who I am, and who I am is all I got. And to me, I think that's a big struggle that people have is what if I actually declare my philosophy, or in this case, my philosophy of sales leadership, my philosophy of selling, and people reject it. I get fired like in Jerry Maguire, or they just immediately reject it. And so what advice would you give, again, to a sales leader if their philosophy gets them fired, gets them rejected?
So it's what's really interesting. So I haven't shared this with you yet, but I've really gone into a lot of the work of an author named Alison Armstrong. Have you heard this name before?
No.
Okay. So she's fascinating. I'll send you some things.
Tell me more.
So she started studying men, and her philosophy is that, she says it a lot of humor, and I hope I don't botch this too bad, but she says one of the issues is that women believe that men are hairy women without manners, and men believe that women are hairless men with too many emotions. And she said that's the big problem between men and women, instead of understanding that we are very, very different. She gives this great scenario of if you watch the Discovery or Animal Planet or Discovery Channel or any of these on animals, one of the things when they're talking about an animal is they will tell you the difference between the male animals and the female animals, and it's very, very different. The only place that we don't do that is when we talk about humans, and we're like, oh, we're equal, we're the same. And we are not. Now, I say that long story long to get to, at this point right now, in the middle of these studies that I'm doing in her work, she would say, and so I'm interested in your opinion on this, she says that by the time a man, will say his opinion or his philosophy that is like concrete. He's done a lot of thinking. It's who he is, and it is immovable at that point. And one of the differences in women is that we will tell you what we think about or our opinion or our philosophy, and we're very comfortable with it changing the next day. So if you were to ask somebody their philosophy, a woman their philosophy, they can very quickly give you an answer because they don't feel like I'm giving you this answer that's for my whole life and is a part of who I am. In fact, she says that opinions and philosophies for men is core to their soul and who they are, the way that a woman feels like her feelings and emotions are core into her soul and how she connects to her creator. So at this moment with somebody on philosophy and being afraid to say it, she says there's a path that men go through to a place where they now feel very confident in saying who they are, and in the Jerry Maguire, like, to hell with everything else. If I get fired, I get fired. Like, I'm standing by who I claim who I am, and that there's a process in becoming that. And so from that perspective, if I was coaching a man and he was not ready for that yet, I would say, what part are you? What part of being a leader do you feel is immovable for you, that you feel grounded in? And let's start there. We don't have to define all parts of your leadership. Let's define a part, like what feels okay right now, and let's start there, and that would be fine. And then I probably would spend less time, I would think, with a woman, because in her studies, it would be easier for them to say their philosophy. And so what I might do is coach and say, start asking more questions on, is this something you've always believed? Do you believe that this will be your philosophy next year and 10 years from now? Or is this your philosophy for today with the team that you're in, to help her define the space and time and team with which she's in order for her to create that and to know that it can be changed? Because when you say philosophy, for me, I go, okay, well, I can say a philosophy because my philosophies might change. But now, if she is right in her studies, which I think she is, that would be a more difficult thing from the male perspective. But I am so fascinated in your opinion on that.
Well, I think I agree with everything she said so far. That you've said to me. I definitely know that by the time I present something to you or bring something up as far as the future of FPG, and we just rolled out this new future vision of FPG for 2025 and 2026 and 7 and our even 2035, a 10-year vision, and I've been thinking about it nonstop before I even mentioned it to you. So I was pretty baked in by the time I presented my philosophy to you of what and the vision of what I was trying to accomplish. So
and I tell you things the second they come into my brain, and I don't really know if I believe it or not. I just say it out loud because I want to know what your opinion is.
Huh. Yeah, that's very interesting.
So one thing that's very interesting. So she said her advice to women is to recognize that a man has been thinking about his philosophy or his opinion on something. And so when they bring it to you, don't try to change it or question it at that point because it's settled in.
Yeah, I could see that.
But I'm curious, what are some of your philosophies? So I shared some of my philosophies, and we have philosophies in different areas of life. So what are your, I know we're going to get to the sales warrior philosophy that you've written, but other philosophies that you have in your life or your identities?
Yeah. So one of them for sure definitely has to do with parenting. So, a lot of it has to do with the way you were raised, right? So again, I was raised as a kid from the 80s, and the whole belief system of a kid from the 80s was if you made it to the age of 21 and you didn't die, then you would be successful. There was some sort of survival of the fittest type thing, and that's because back in that time period, the parents just weren't really around. The parents, it seems like the next generation of parents is when we started having more rules and that helicopter parent thing kind of came out. But that's not how I was raised or my friends were raised. We just kind of did whatever we wanted to do and came back when it was dark. And that was basically how we kind of ran things. Now, a lot of kids, unfortunately, super unfortunate, a lot of kids didn't make it. They actually I grew up in Plano, Texas. There was like lots of drug abuse and suicides and all kinds of stuff. So I get it. I get the pendulum swung the other way. And of course, the next generation came around and was like, okay, we got to like rein these kids in because too many kids are making the wrong decisions for themselves. And so parents, of course, wanted to jump in and be the protectors of their children. So I understand it. I think there's always a good of every side. But I also believe, that I think it's important for a child to have a little bit of environmental struggle, So I think they need to kind of work things through, and in an environment where a parent can help guide them, but not make decisions for them. And so that's definitely a philosophy that I have from that perspective.
Good. So the philosophy of allow some struggle in your kids' lives.
Allow some struggle in our kids' life, for sure. Yeah. So I think that's a big one. I also, another philosophy that I have has to do with people's careers and with my career, but the advice that we give our employees all the time, and that is that 80% of your life, of your job, you should really be doing something that strengthens you, something that brings you joy in your work. And if it brings you joy, then you're going to provide the most value, and you're going to be the happiest, and it's going to be what's the right word? It's going to be an energy producing type activity. So the work that you do is going to refuel you, and it's not going to deplete you. 20% of the stuff is probably going to be stuff that you have to do. Just you can't get around that stuff. But the goal should really be 80% should be something that you really enjoy doing, and it brings you joy, even if it's not making the kind of money that you want to make. It would be better for you to have something that really strengthens you and brings you joy and increases your motivation, increases your energy, and brings you fulfillment, even if that means you're sacrificing a little bit of income.
Now, is that a philosophy that you've always had, or is that something that you got later in life?
That's definitely a philosophy that we teach our employees. But I would say probably. No, I would say even I would say my entire life. I definitely, when I was younger, of course, I worked for someone else, and so I probably chose to just be in that apprentice mode and just do whatever they told me to do, which is, I think, how it has to work. I think to master anything, I think you have to go through a time period of being an apprentice, and again, just whatever the master tells you to do, you need to do, because that's the fastest way to get where you want to go. But then as you evolve, then you definitely have more freedom of choice. And again, as an entrepreneur, I can pretty much do almost anything I want to do, not anything I want to do. But so I try to choose as many things as I can that, again, bring me joy, which is an exercise that I actually got from Tim Ferriss. I don't know if you remember this or not, but several years ago, there's an exercise I learned from Tim Ferriss where he plans out his calendar based upon looking at the past year's calendar of what are all the things that he did in the past year that actually brought him joy, that he enjoyed doing, that he looked forward to doing. And then what are all the things that were kind of neutral? And then what are all the things that were energy depleters that kind of sucked energy? And then so he then kind of did this annual exercise and then decided, okay, well, here's all the things that bring me joy. And so let's figure out a way to do more of that. And so every year he has this kind of upgrade year where every year he kind of stops doing things that he doesn't want, that sucks energy away from, or he delegates that or assigns that to someone else. And then he replaces those with things that, again, bring him more joy.
That's wonderful. I forgot about that, but I do remember how many times we would sit down, or you'd have the whole company sit down and write out every single task you do and put the plus sign next to the ones that bring you joy, the negative sign next to the depleting, and then do the percentages to figure out. It's also a great way of figuring out, is someone in the right seat? Are they doing the job that they're supposed to be doing? Even if they're good at it, if 90% of this job, of the tasks that they do on a daily basis, they say they hate, well, I don't know if this is the right place or the right thing for you right now. That was always an interesting exercise. Yeah,
and so that's a good example of what's your philosophy of planning out your year. Planning out 2025, planning out the year ahead. And so you could take the Tim Ferriss approach. Another approach that I've taken recently is Jesse Itzler. Jesse Itzler, in his approach, he has this thing that he sells that I've purchased called the Big Ass Calendar, and And it's where he takes you through an event. I highly recommend everyone check out Jesse Itzler and his calendaring approach on YouTube. And he'll basically talk about how you plan out your calendar based upon different experiences that you want to have. He also calls it a concept called the Muskogi, and the Muskogi is a Japanese word. It basically means like your kind of year-defining moment. And so last year I did this exercise, and that's when you and I decided to hike the 29029 and hike and do this Everest challenge, which happens to also be co-owned by Jesse Itzler, and he's the one that created this event. But that was our Muskogi for 2024 was we're gonna hike this mountain in 36 hours, and this not mountain but this Everest event where you hike the distance of Mount Everest, and that was a Muskogi. But that's what's your philosophy about calendaring, your philosophy about planning out your year, and what does that really look like? Because a lot of people, they don't do that. They don't put a lot of intention to something, and so the year is really happening to them versus happening for them. They're not planned out. But like from you and I's perspective, our year is basically already mapped out. We can tell you exactly what we're doing in 2026 every single month, all the major milestones. We have date night every Wednesday, all the different experiences that we have when we're doing certain things with our children. I mean, all that's already planned out because that's our philosophy.
Yeah, absolutely. Every month we know what's happening, what we're focusing on. There's a little bit of wiggle room, of course, as things come up, but for the most part, and it feels in that way, going into it, it's not about what's going to happen to you, because you already know what you're creating, which feels a lot more powerful. And then as things come into alignment or new things come in, there's space to allow magic.
100%. Yeah. And of course you're doing one of my favorite words of all times, and it's one of our theme words for the year, and that's attack, attack, attack. And so you get to attack, attack, attack the year ahead.
You're doing that, and my theme word for the year is faith, but it's very similar.
Yeah. Attack, attack, attack. We have three themes for FPG that I'll share with everyone. I'd love everyone to adopt these themes as well. And so the first one is attack, attack, attack. The second one is be relentless on improving. So meaning like just 1% better every day, 365 days better for the year. Just be a little bit better every day. Push yourself to be a better version of you. And then the third theme is we're going to win no matter what. Is that even if people are asking us, hey, how are things going? How's this podcast going? Oh, it's going great. Everyone's loving the podcast. It's just going great. Everyone, how's business? Business is going great. Everything's going great. And again, we're not trying to take away from the idea of being vulnerable and being real, but I think it's important to get our mind right, and it's important to again act as if things are winning, and I think it's important to do that. Of course, some people you can be more honest with and tell the truth with, but for most people, I don't think it's really their business to know every little thing that's going on. I don't think it's really helpful and probably the main reason for that is, again, misery loves company. And so most people, if you are really crushing it, then they're really not probably happy, because it's you might be doing something better than them, and that might make them feel bad about themselves. But on the flip side, if you are struggling and you're like, yeah, things are kind of down right now, sales are down, business is down, no one's watching the stinking podcast, they're like, yeah, I can understand. Yeah, I understand. And of course, all that does is create this what kind of flywheel effect of negativity of now you have another person that is agreeing that you're not successful, and it's just hard to get yourself out of that decision of defeat.
Well, and energetically, that's where you're placed in somewhere, which also, I mean, I have a philosophy of, if you have a really large goal and you're not really sure how you're going to get there yet, you only share that with people who will see you succeeding, who will hold you in that space, and know that you can do it. You don't want to share that with somebody who's like, oh my God, I don't know that Mary can do that. I don't know how she's going to do that. That's not like her, because now that's the energy that's coming towards you. And so I think it's better sometimes to keep those things inside, or just share with the people that really know you, see you, believe in you, until it's baked, and then you can go and share with other people and share with the public,
or share that with people who are on the same journey as you. Share with people that have the same goals as you, or people who have already been there or have bigger goals than you. I mean, that's great, right? Because those people are going to be extremely encouraging of the big goals that you have. I think to yes, and what you're saying, I think the problem sometimes is we share goals with people who have less goals than we have, and that's where it becomes not a very strong support system.
You're going to sell how many million? Oh no, how would that ever happen? They can't picture it for themselves, so they can't picture it for you. Yeah. I think you're right.
Yeah, and again, there's so many times this happens, right? This happens in sales where they're like, man, I think I hear, how often do we hear stuff like, I think you might be killing yourself. Don't overwork yourself. Don't, be careful how much you're putting forth. Don't burn yourself out. I mean, these are comments that people make. And again, I believe they're making that because they aren't working that hard, and they really, again, they feel guilty. They're not working that hard, and so it's easier to pull you down than it is to support you in your journey.
Yes.
So,
but again, it just goes into our philosophy on words and what you say, and how important it is to be impeccable with your words and impeccable with who you share them with and what you say out loud. I think last time is when we were talking about the negative things. Like if a negative thing pops in your head, you definitely don't want to say it out loud and give more power to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Okay, so now that we understand the importance of a philosophy, now let's talk about when we've studied, again, thousands of salespeople. We wanted to figure out what is the philosophy of the top salespeople out there, and we came up with this one sentence, and that is: all human beings are moving away from pain and towards life improvement, and a sales warrior is on a mission to liberate their customer from any indecision. And so, to me, this is the philosophy of the great ones. This is the philosophy of the top 1%. Again, sales professionals, we call them warriors. And that's that they live by this idea that every customer they're speaking to, not just some, not just a few, but 100% of the customers they're speaking to, they've got some sort of pain that they've got to solve. They've got some sort of pain that they're moving away from, that they've got to fix, or else they wouldn't be talking to a salesperson, right? So there's something going on. And that customer could be saying something like, I'm just looking, I'm not really interested, I'm just here to get information, I'm just here to check things out. We might be doing something in a year or 2 years or 3 years or next quarter, but that's not really true, right? There's some kind of pain that's happening, that's going on. And at the same time, they're also moving towards some sort of life improvement. And that sales warrior, again, their job, their mission is to figure out what is the indecision that's preventing them from getting away from the pain they're in and taking action to take another step towards the life improvement that they desire.
It's wonderful. And I love the indecision part, because it takes away, it's not that my philosophy is that everyone agrees with me. My philosophy is that everyone does X. No, my philosophy is that I remove the indecision for them. So whether that is that they're in the ambiguity of the indecision of, do I make a change at all? I can help you make that decision, yes or no. And that relieves the indecision. And should I move forward with you or somebody else? Great. I can just help you make that decision. And when that is our ultimate goal, our ultimate philosophy is to help people move out of that, well, what freedom it gives us as a salesperson, because it's not me doing everything I can. I only live my mission and my philosophy when I get you to do what I want you to do. No, when I get you to make a decision, whatever that is. Now it allows us to go into that servant space in a really healthy, beautiful way, in the highest level of servant.
So when we think about this idea of this philosophy of a sales professional, I think it's so critical, because it dramatically helps the salesperson understand what they're there to do. Right? They're there to to say, look, the customer in front of me has a problem, and I am here to solve that problem. Now, it's very possible that the customer is not even aware of the problems they have, and so those problems are a lot of those problems are hidden, and so we need to get them to admit those problems, which we'll talk about in the future. But it's very, to me, it's very liberating as a sales professional to also know that I'm not just talking to someone that's wasting my time. And I think a lot of salespeople have these biases that I only want ready, willing, able buyers. I only want buyers that are really interested in what I have to offer. And what we've studied is a top 1% sales professional, a sales warrior. They believe that every customer that is put in front of them, every prospect put in front of them, is a real buyer. Now, they might be early on in the stages of buying, but they are a real buyer because they've got a big enough problem to want to talk to a salesperson, and they've got a big enough desire to do something about it to at least take the first step, which is to talk to a salesperson.
Exactly. I love it. And it's when we change it to the fulfillment of the entire philosophy, no time is wasted, no person is wrong, nothing that you're doing is off. Now, your skill set of getting somebody to make decisions quickly, now that's where the art comes in and the fun. And sometimes finding out, that somebody is not ready right now, then great. Your decision, or if helping them out of indecision, is helping them to know, yeah, you really are in a year. Here's the steps of what you need to do up until then. Let's set an appointment in 12 months.
Yeah, exactly. So this also leads me to a good concept that people can get their heads around, and that's this idea of heaven and hell and purgatory. So to me, if we think about it, and this is a concept that we taught the United States Army when we were working with them, is that whenever you're talking to a potential customer, the first thing you have to realize is, again, what's the hell that they're currently in with their product or service, or again, we were working with the Army. It was a high school kid's current life. It was the life track that they were on, the path that they were on. So first you have to help them understand what is that hell that they're currently in that they want to get away from. That if they don't change, how is that hell going to be worse tomorrow or the next day or the future? And then at the same time, you want to get them to visualize and talk about the heaven they want to move towards. So what is that? What is that fun and freedom and desire that they're trying to create? What's that life that they want? And so again, with the Army, it was discussing the future adventures they want to have and the careers that they want to be. They want to be a mechanic or electrical engineer. Or they want it to be, what is that? What is that future? And so what is purgatory? Purgatory is you. Purgatory is selling them on you and selling them on the process of going from that hell to that heaven. And where this is a complete game changer for people to think about is that a lot of people think that what you're selling is heaven, and what you are selling is not heaven. What you're actually selling is purgatory. So your brand, your product, your systems, or in the case of the Army, the Army is purgatory. And they really struggle with that because again, the Army has an unlimited training budget, and they were failing to achieve their recruitment mission. So again, their recruiters are salespeople, right? Their job is to sell them on serving this country and joining the Army. And they were failing on their mission, and they brought us in, and we rewrote the script, and within 90 days, they improved their performance 108%, and they were able to bring in five more recruits per person in 90 days than a recruiter who was not in our program. And I believe one of the main shifts that we helped them see was stop selling the Army as heaven and start selling what the Army will create for them or make them become as heaven. That's the shift. And it's interesting because they think about that. I mean, it's the Army, right? It's I'm going to shave my head. I'm going to do 1,000 burpees a day. I'm going to get yelled at. I'm going to leave my girlfriend, leave my wife, leave my kids, go, all these different places. Well, that's a hard sell. And so if I'm trying to sell you on here's what you need to start doing tomorrow, that's a hard sell. But instead, if I can sell you on, or if I can understand what's your life path, like who do you want to become? Well, I want to become a mechanic. Let's talk about how much money you're going to make becoming a mechanic, and then I'm going to share with you, well, in order to become a mechanic, and I can pay for all that for you, and I can give you that entire livelihood, and all I need is 3 years of your commitment in order to join the Army. And in 3 years, we're going to pay for all of that, and you're going to leave, and you're going to make $100,000 a year, and you're going to get all these benefits and working for the Army. Well, now a kid's like, oh, well, I can do that. I can deal with 3 years of purgatory and going through that process to get me away from this hell of, I don't want to go to school anymore, and I don't want to have this same life that I had before. I want this new life of being a mechanic, but I don't know how to do it. I want to make this kind of money. And now the Army becomes the vehicle to get them from hell into heaven. And I think that's a big mind shift for a lot of people. I think a lot of people, they try to make their product or their service or their brand, they try to make that the heaven. And that's not the heaven. That's the purgatory. It's what your product or service will bring the customer is the heaven. And you got to get the customer to admit that. And then you have to show them how your product or service will be the path or the vehicle to be able to get them there.
I love that so much. And it makes me, it makes me so happy because that is so life-changing as a sales message. So it was so beautiful, and it was so perfectly done with the Army and absolutely true. And then we worked with several trade schools and shared that with them. Like, going to school while you're working is not heaven. Like, that's actually horrible. It's purgatory, but what you're able to accomplish afterwards is, it's funny. I'll start a lot of at the times when talking to home builders, and I'll say, okay, guys, I have a question for you. Of everyone you've ever sold a home with, how many of them was the home building process marriage strengthening and really loving and a beautiful time in their life? And everyone starts laughing. They're like, no, it's a lot of work, a lot of decisions, a lot of just struggle in such a huge thing. I'll go, wait, no. Like packing their house and deciding what stays and what goes. Like deciding on, it's even, I know it's fun to decide on elements within your kitchen, but it's still big decisions and arguments, and seeing that as purgatory. I've got 3 different clients right now. I haven't shared this. We have 3 different clients right now that are changing their CRM systems. CRM systems, it is not heaven. It is purgatory. However, when you have a system that's up and running and beautiful and it's doing the things for you that it's supposed to be doing, and you have the information and you can show up for your prospects with knowledge and in a direction and an agenda with them because of the CRM system, that's heaven. Putting your data in there is not. Transitioning is definitely not. All of that is purgatory. And so I think that is so brilliant, and it's been such a it's so freeing because it lets us be in real rapport with people instead of, no, let me convince you about how heaven this is. And it's not, I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it. I can see that it's not heaven. I'm in the middle of it. It feels out of alignment because it is, and this is the beautiful place of getting in rapport. And I see the confidence from salespeople when they now take that approach, that they feel they're more in alignment with who they are. They are more certain in their speech and more confident because it's so aligned to truth, to real truth.
Yeah. Well, and that's goes perfectly with one of the core beliefs of the top 1%, and that's the why must be greater than the sacrifice. And really that kind of it connects perfectly to this because the idea behind it is the sacrifice is transferring your data to the new CRM. That's the sacrifice. Is the time and effort and energy that's going to require in order to make that happen. That's the sacrifice. The why is the hell and the heaven. The why is the pain that they currently are in, and the heaven, which is the life improvement they're moving towards. And so we got to amplify and increase the hell and the heaven in order to sell them on the time of the sacrifice the purgatory is going to take. And in some companies, it's longer than others. For a CRM, it might be It might be, I think for us, when we moved over to HubSpot, we recommend HubSpot for those who are listening, is that for HubSpot, it took us, I think, 2 months. I think 2 months was the transition phase, and it was purgatory. It wasn't. I'm not saying it was incredible. It wasn't heaven to move over. It was pretty horrible. But it took us 2 months, and we got through it. But the thing that we focused on so much is what's the information that we needed to have that we weren't having before in our previous CRM? What was that information that we needed, and how is that going to improve our life, and what was that going to do for us? And it's about staying true to that. Like, what is that heaven? And so again, whatever you're selling, that's the best way to really create urgency and get a person to get off the fence and to change is to constantly remind them, again, what is the life path they're on or the hell they're currently in right now. And if they don't make that change, how is it going to be worse for them tomorrow and the next day? And how is it going to compound at the same time? What's the true heaven that they want to move towards and lock onto? And how can we get them to, again, visualize that and talk about that even more? And the more we can really, again, increase the hell and increase the heaven, the more we can minimize the sacrifice it's going to have to take in order to get through that purgatory of making that change. And sometimes that's for a custom builder. I know we work with a builder that sells homes in Hawaii, and their build time is like 15, 16 months. Sometimes build times are 24 months. And so can you imagine buying a secondary home in Hawaii? You live in the United States, live in the mainland, and you're having to go through a 16 to 24 month build process, which is purgatory, and all the sacrifices that go in. So the advice that I would have for a salesperson is they better know exactly the hell that customer is going through, the pain they're going through right now, that if they don't buy this house, what is that going to mean to them? They don't stick through this, and then what's the heaven they're going to get at the end of the 24 months? And you got to know that stuff, and you got to keep reminding them of those things in order to, one, sell them, and number two, keep the sale sold during that purgatory.
And I wonder too, I think that it probably keeps the salesperson's thought processes correct too, because sometimes a salesperson will let a sale go. They stop following up. They stop really going after, like, it's not that they don't really need, like, do they really need us or not? But when we can think about it, like, no, they're coming because there is some hell that they're trying to get away from, and hell does not cure itself. Hell never cures itself. Hell never becomes heaven. It does not transform. And so without the salesperson doing their job, that person will be stuck there in hell. The only way out is the salesperson helping them go through the transition to purgatory to get to the heaven.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know what this is called in the mythology times, but it's like that journey. It's like that.
The hero's journey thing.
Well, so I'm kind of like picturing, like in the Greek. This is back in my like Latin days of school, but there was like some sort of like journeyman that was like took them through purgatory. Like in the mythologies, they took them from one side of the secondary life to the next, and they put them anyway. But that's the idea, right? The idea is that the salesperson really is that journey person that's taking them from the darkness into the light, and has to really hold them accountable. Has to be that Sherpa that takes them from that misery to that life improvement. Okay, so right now we talked about a lot of things today, but specifically, what does a salesperson need to say, do, or think about differently in order to improve their philosophy as it relates to being the ultimate sales professional?
They need to search for what is true for them, who they want to show up and be, and let that be the filter for their thoughts, words, and actions.
I love that. Thank you.
Jason, what does a sales professional need to say, think, or do in order to strengthen or have a philosophy?
So the first thing that comes to mind, and it echoes what you just said, and that's this is the philosophy that we studied from the top 1% sales professionals. But if this doesn't strengthen you, if it doesn't give you confidence, then yeah, feel free to tweak it and adapt it and kind of work on it. The ultimate goal is that, again, your philosophy should be your guiding light that is something that you can use in your biggest times of despair or anxiety or worry. You should be able to have something that you're able to go to and say, you know what, I'm not sure about my success right now. I'm not sure about my results. I'm not sure if I'm doing the right thing. And you should be able to go back to your philosophy and say, okay, well, am I living true to my philosophy? And if you're living true to your philosophy, then you're really on the right path.
Beautiful. Thank you.
So tell me something that a sales warrior should say, do, or think about in order to improve or strengthen their philosophy.
From your philosophy for them is recognizing the most important thing is to help people out of indecision. So that is the win. When somebody decides, I am definitely moving forward with you, or I am definitely not making a change, or I'm definitely moving forward with somebody else. If you're the first one to know that and you helped them on that journey, you just won as a sales professional.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Jason, what can a sales warrior say, think, or do in order to strengthen their philosophy?
So I would say constantly coach themselves on every do a post op, right? So every time that they worked with a customer, I would say go back and just hold themselves accountable to, to where did I live up to my, or live out my philosophy with this prospect, and where did I not live out my philosophy with this prospect? So like in the case of this one, did I truly get the customer to admit their pain, and do I really understand the hell that they're trying to get away from? Did I get them to talk about it and amplify it, and I make it big enough and strong that it creates momentum for them to want to leave, in their life and do something about? And did I understand and I get them to verbalize the life improvement or the heaven that they're wanting to move towards? Did I get them to do that? And is there anything that I could have done better in order to get them to, again, kind of speak the true heaven that they want to move towards? So I think if they could use just even this one philosophy as a way to hold themselves accountable, then 100% they would be improving their conversion rate overnight.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. So today we talked about a lot of things. We talked about the top 1%, and again, what do they think about, say, and do? But it all comes to their philosophy. What is their philosophy as it relates to sales? And so I would ask everyone right now to just take a moment and adopt the philosophy that we live by, and the philosophy of the top 1% that we've studied, and or create your own philosophy, but create something that's true to you. Create something that strengthens you, and then live it out, and then practice it. And of course, put in the comments below, again, what your philosophy of sales is, or if you're going to adopt our philosophy. At the same time, if you like this message, definitely share it with other people. We are on a personal mission here. I've had the same mission for the last 20 years of my life, and that's to ignite the pride, purpose, and respect to professional selling. There's a lot of poser salespeople out there that are teaching the wrong things. There are a lot of con artists out there that are giving a bad rap to sales. And so we want to ignite the pride, purpose, and respect to professional selling. And so if you believe that this message, this podcast would help them, so please share it with them. At the same time, you can like and subscribe to get more people to see it and be notified that on our next show that's coming up. Until next time, this is Jason Forrest. Push yourself to become a better version of you.